On July 4th, 2022, a deadly massacre broke out in Highland Park, Illinois, killing 7 people and injuring more than 40, making it one of the worst mass shootings in Illinois history.
This is a terribly difficult day and the bloodiest that we've experienced in Highland Park.
There are no words for the kind of evil that shows up at a public celebration of freedom, hides on a roof, and shoots innocent people with an assault rifle.
What makes this even more disturbing is the fact that there were warning signs, red flags that could have saved lives, but were ignored. In today's video, you'll understand exactly why the 4th of July will never feel the same for those who lived through it, and why it never should have happened in the first place.
It's on our mind every day. If not every day, it's there. Some days it's worse than others.
Larry Bloom.
The floats are going by, maybe someone set off fireworks, and then obviously very quickly it turned into, just rapid fire.
Alexander Sandoval.
I ran with my brother and my child and my dog, and I ran around the building. I put them in a dumpster. I told them that, that some boy was firing fireworks into the crowd, that they needed to wait for me.
And Keely Roberts.
I think about the family that went to the parade that day, and that family's gone.
These were just some of the people who survived the attack, brave, shaken, and forever changed. But while they made it out alive, others weren't so lucky. Stephen Strauss, 88 years old, went to the parade just to watch and enjoy the day. He wasn't part of the crowd cheering loudly. He was simply observing, soaking in the moment. He was shot and killed where he stood. Nicholas Toledo Zaragoza, a father of 8 from Mexico, was in town visiting family. That day, he joined them for what was supposed to be a fun outing. He had no idea it would be his last. Nicholas was hit by several bullets and died in front of his family, who were left screaming and begging for help. Then there were Irina and Kevin McCarthy, who brought their 2-year-old son, Aiden, to the parade. But when gunshots rang out, everything changed. Kevin threw himself over Aiden to protect him. Both Irina and Kevin were killed. Aiden was found wandering the scene alone, his parents gone forever, his little hands stained with blood. Jackie Sundheim, a kind woman known for her work and warm spirit at her synagogue, was also killed. Catherine Goldstein came to enjoy the day with her daughter. She never made it home. Eduardo Uvaldo was shot in the head. He held on for a day in the hospital before he too passed away. In just minutes, lives were taken, families destroyed, and a celebration turned into tragedy. The 4th of July would never be the same for the people of Highland Park. Now the question is, who did this and why?
We begin with breaking news in the deadly shooting at that 4th of July parade in Highland Park, Illinois. Just a short time ago, prosecutors announced the suspect is now charged with 7 counts of murder as the death toll continues to grow. At least 7 people killed, more than 30 wounded. Tonight, authorities are revealing more about the alleged gunman and the plot that they say he'd been working on for weeks. They released this image saying 21-year-old Robert Cremo escaped through the chaos by wearing a wig and dressing in women's clothing, covering his tattoos and blending into the crowd.
Robert Eugene Cremo III was born on September 20th, 2000 in Chicago, Illinois, and grew up in a town just north of the city called Highland Park. He came from a family of Italian descent and was the middle child of 3 siblings. Highland Park is a quiet, upscale area with a population of just over 30,000 people. It's the kind of place where people know their neighbors, and the streets are lined with trees and parks. But Robert's story would cast a dark shadow over that peaceful image. In a strange twist of fate, Nancy Rotering, the current mayor of Highland Park, actually knew Robert personally years before the tragedy. She remembered him not as a monster or a threat, but as a shy, quiet boy. Her words carried the pain and disbelief many in the town felt when they found out who was behind the horrific attack. Robert's uncle, Paul Cremo, echoed a similar emotion. In interviews, Paul said he was heartbroken by what happened on the 4th of July. When asked if he noticed any warning signs or red flags before the attack, Paul shook his head and said there were none, at least not any that he saw. According to him, Robert wasn't working at the time, but he had a job before the pandemic at a Panera Bread location. Paul described his nephew as a quiet, lonely person who kept everything to himself. He wasn't aware of any political views or involvement. To most, Robert was simply withdrawn and distant, not someone who would go on to commit mass murder. Before the shooting, Robert was living in a small apartment behind his family's house in Highwood, Illinois, a nearby town. The apartment was owned by his father, Bob Crimo Jr., a local businessman and former convenience store owner. Bob currently runs a local deli in town. Interestingly, Bob once ran for mayor of Highland Park in 2019, going head-to-head with Nancy Rotering. During that campaign, Rotering spoke out against assault weapons. Meanwhile, Bob's public behavior showed he may have held opposing views. Just a few days after the tragic school shooting in Uvalde, Texas, where 19 children and 2 teachers were killed, Bob liked a tweet that read, "Protect the Second Amendment like your life depends on it." Robert's mother, identified as Denise Piscina, is a Mormon and works in the field of alternative therapies. She's connected to a company called Trilogy Energy Systems, which deals with energy healing and holistic practices. While neither parent ever seemed to suspect their son was capable of such violence, some community members and observers have pointed out that Robert's upbringing was far from typical. There were reports of police being called to the Crimo household multiple times dating back to his childhood. What many people missed or ignored were the alarming signs on Robert's social media and online presence. Long before the shooting, Robert had already created a dark online world for himself. He released music under the name Awake the Rapper, uploading songs and videos filled with disturbing imagery. He posted albums in 2017, 2018, and again in 2021. His music videos often included pictures of weapons, gunshots, and even animations of him shooting people. In one clip, he's seen wearing a bulletproof vest, rapping about destiny and destruction. In another, he narrates, "I need to do it. It's my destiny." More recently, Robert Crimo had released an EP titled Brainwashed, a name that now seems eerily fitting. The project included tracks like Dead Again and I Am the Storm, both filled with ominous undertones and lyrics that, in hindsight, read like subtle warnings of what was to come. Before his music was taken down, he was averaging around 16,000 monthly listeners on Spotify. The platform has since removed his catalog, likely as a move to prevent the glamorization or viral spread of his content, something that's sadly become common after tragedies where perpetrators gain a disturbing level of notoriety. In this case, the removal seemed more like an act of respect for the victims rather than censorship. Crimo's presence on YouTube was equally unsettling. He didn't just rap, he built entire animated worlds around violence and death. One of the most chilling videos he uploaded was titled Are You Awake?, which showed a stick figure character that closely resembled him. In the video, this figure is dressed in tactical gear and carries out a calculated shooting with a rifle. It wasn't subtle, it wasn't symbolic, it was a blueprint. Another video, Toy Soldier, showed the same stick figure lying face down in a pool of blood, surrounded by armed police. These weren't abstract ideas or artistic metaphors, they were visual rehearsals for real-life horror. Beyond his music and videos, Robert also managed a Discord server called SS, a name disturbingly associated with the Nazi paramilitary group responsible for many atrocities during the Holocaust. This added another layer of darkness to his already troubling online presence. While it's unclear how active or large this Discord group was, the choice of name alone was enough to raise major red flags. Still, no one in his circle seemed to take action. Or maybe no one knew the full extent of what he was doing online. In October of 2021, Robert uploaded what many now believe was a video manifesto. It combined elements from his earlier videos and featured a haunting voiceover. In a detached and cold tone, he said things like a sleepwalker, I am breaking through. My actions will be valiant. My thought is unnecessary. I know what I have to do. These words echoed like a prophecy, a calm before the storm. The background visuals included newspaper headlines, including one referencing the death of Lee Harvey Oswald, the man who assassinated President John F. Kennedy in 1963. Even Mayor Nancy Rotering, who had known Robert as a child, later admitted in an interview that there were several postings that clearly reflected a plan and a desire to commit carnage. His intentions weren't hidden in the deep web or buried in secret chat rooms. They were out in the open for anyone to see. And yet, tragically, no one intervened in time. Then came the day that changed Highland Park forever, July 4th, 2022. It began like any typical Independence Day in the peaceful Illinois suburb. Streets were lined with red, white, and blue. Families showed up dressed in patriotic clothes. Children waved flags. The town, which had only seen 2 murders in 20 years, felt like one of the safest places to be. But safety, as it turned out, was an illusion. At around 10:15 in the morning, just 15 minutes into the parade, the sounds of celebration were drowned out by the pop, pop, pop of gunfire. At first, many thought it was fireworks. But when the marching band dropped their instruments and ran, panic set in. Screams echoed through the streets. People tripped over each other as they tried to flee. Parents grabbed their children and ducked behind floats. In the chaos, blood covered the pavement. Bodies fell. Confusion turned to horror. Reports would later confirm that Robert had climbed an unsecured metal ladder behind Gearhead Outfitters, an outdoor equipment store. From the rooftop, he had a clear view of the parade route. Armed with a high-powered semi-automatic rifle, he began firing into the crowd. He killed 6 people on the spot. A 7th would die later at the hospital. More than 36 others were injured, many seriously. Witnesses described the scene as absolute pandemonium. The shooting ended as quickly as it began, but the damage was already done. Victims were found lying motionless on the street. Families were separated in the chaos. One child was found wandering alone. His parents, Irina and Kevin McCarthy, had been shot and killed while shielding him from bullets. Among the 38 people injured, the ages ranged from 8 to 85. At least 5 of the victims were children. Nearly all were suffering from gunshot wounds and were rushed to North Shore University Health System. Emergency responders worked tirelessly to treat wounds, stop bleeding, and reunite loved ones. But nothing could erase the trauma of that morning.
My phone! aquí hay heridos o muertos. Hay un chingo tirado en el piso. Y son varios. No sé qué pasó. Ahí está otro. ¿Se lo alcanzan a ver ahí en medio? Aquí lo están tratando de revivir a este. Aquí hay 3 o 4 tirados y unos ya hasta los taparon.
What made this tragedy even more disturbing was what happened right after the shooting ended. As the crowd scrambled to help the injured and police rushed in to secure the scene, the man behind the massacre, Robert Crimo, was already gone. Somehow he had slipped away before anyone realized what had happened. And how did he do it? In a strange and calculated move, Robert disguised himself in women's clothing to blend in with the fleeing crowd. Witnesses later said they had seen someone looking oddly out of place, but in the chaos, no one would have guessed they were standing next to a mass shooter. But Robert's escape wouldn't last long. The turning point in the investigation came from the very thing he left behind: his high-powered rifle, believed to be similar to an AR-15 style weapon. Police recovered it at the scene and quickly traced it back to him. That gun, purchased legally, led authorities straight to Robert's home in Highwood, Illinois, where he lived with his father. Officers arrived at the house by Monday evening, just a day after the massacre, ready to make an arrest. However, when they entered the home, Robert wasn't there. It's unclear what they found inside, but what mattered was that the suspect was still on the run. Thankfully, he wouldn't be free for long. Just hours later, during a routine traffic stop, a North Chicago police officer spotted a silver Honda Fit matching the description of Robert's vehicle. The license plate confirmed it. This was their guy. When officers tried to pull him over, Robert briefly tried to flee. But the chase didn't last long. Police forced him off the road and took him into custody without incident.
Lake Forest, that's not far from Highland Park at all, as you know, just north of it. Police say a sharp-eyed officer from North Chicago noticed Crimo's car and tried to stop him. And we also have, and that's what we're looking at right here, that's the car in question, Crimo's car. Another video as well where police say there was that short pursuit. Crimo was finally taken into custody. We're not sure, short pursuit, we're not sure if that was seconds, a minute, whatever. We'll probably find out the specifics on that at some point. But all of this happens about 8 hours after the attack that shattered the 4th of July celebrations in downtown Highland Park.
By that point, the country was already shaken. The news had spread fast. The photos, the name, the disturbing online content. It was everywhere. The small, quiet town of Highland Park had been rocked by an unthinkable act of violence. 7 people were dead. Dozens were hurt. Hundreds, if not thousands, were emotionally scarred. And yet, the question on everyone's mind was the same. Why? Why did he do this? What pushed him to plan something so cruel? Part of the answer may lie in his need for attention. Robert didn't just want to hurt people. He wanted people to watch, to remember, to talk about him. The references in his videos, the stick figures acting out violent scenes, the chilling lyrics all suggest a deep desire to be seen, even if it meant becoming infamous. And in today's world, where being viral sometimes means more than being valued, that kind of thinking can fester dangerously in someone who already feels invisible. Crimo also seemed to crave control. In real life, he was quiet, distant, and somewhat disconnected from those around him. But online, he could build his own world, one where he was the central figure, the hero, the villain, the one holding the power. That false sense of control may have made him feel stronger, more important, more alive than he felt in reality. And when someone is deeply isolated, even twisted attention can feel like purpose. As discussed earlier, he had access to firearms, a history of making threats, and a digital footprint full of red flags. So why wasn't anything done? That's another layer of the tragedy. Crimo's behavior might not have surprised anyone who really looked, but very few people did. Whether it was denial, a lack of communication, or the failure of systems meant to protect us, it all created a space where his plan could take shape, quietly and unnoticed. Then there's the mental health aspect. Crimo had reportedly attempted self-harm before. He had threatened to harm his family. These are not small warnings. They are loud cries for help. And yet, they seem to pass without serious consequences or sustained intervention. Mental illness doesn't always explain violence, but when it goes untreated for years, it can distort reality. It can make someone feel like the only way out is destruction. He also idolized past killers, especially ones who gained fame through acts of terror. That kind of admiration doesn't develop overnight. It's often the result of loneliness, obsession, and a steady diet of disturbing content. When someone already feels like they don't matter and they constantly consume stories where violence gets attention, it creates a dangerous belief that horror equals significance, that causing pain is a way to leave a mark. It's heartbreaking to say, but Robert Crimo may have truly believed this was his legacy, that by taking lives he would give meaning to his own. But let's be clear, this isn't about glorifying him. This is about recognizing the warning signs that too many people ignored, because behind every quiet kid, every weird post, every angry outburst, there could be someone silently spiraling toward something unthinkable. And stopping the next Crimo means paying attention before the chaos begins, because the cost of ignoring it is lives. One of the most gut-wrenching stories comes from a young family who just wanted to enjoy a sunny 4th of July parade. Kevin McCarthy, 37, and his wife Irina, 35, brought their 2-year-old son Aiden to watch the celebration that morning. They were known to be a tight, joyful family. Friends say they were crazy about their child and already planning to have another baby. But when the gunshots rang out, Kevin did what any loving father would do. He dropped to the ground and wrapped his son in his arms. He used his own body as a shield, taking the bullets to protect Aiden. His last act was one of pure love. Later, his family confirmed that he had Aiden under his body when he was shot. The toddler, covered in his father's blood, was later found by strangers, confused, scared, and alone.
You mentioned Aiden was talking. He was saying things. What was he saying?
He'd say, Dad shot, Mom shot, and I would say to him, everything's gonna be fine. I didn't know his name, I didn't know. I was just talking to him, telling him everything's gonna be fine, and he just kept on saying that over and over again. He wasn't crying, very calm, very wide-eyed. When we pulled him out from under his father, we inspected him, pulled his shirt up, because he had blood all over him.
Irina McCarthy, too, gave her life shielding her child. She was a bright and loving mother who worked in digital marketing and had a background in finance. Friends and family described her as the light in every room, the love of my life, her father said. Now Aiden is being raised by his grandparents, carrying the legacy of 2 parents who literally gave everything for him. His survival is a living reminder of their bravery and sacrifice. Kevin's funeral was held in Skokie, Illinois, and hundreds came to mourn him. He wasn't a politician or a celebrity. He was a quiet, hard-working man with a job at a gene therapy startup and a deep love for his family. And yet, his final act made him a hero. His grandfather told the crowd what rescuers had said. He had Aiden under his body when he was shot. It's the kind of sentence that silences a room. But Kevin and Irina weren't the only lives stolen that day. Jackie Sundheim, 63, was a beloved preschool teacher and synagogue staffer. Her kindness touched countless lives. Her daughter later urged mourners to honor her memory by putting more joy and kindness into the world. Catherine Goldstein, 64, had gone to the parade with her daughter. She was a devoted mother and a Highland Park native, known for her big heart and gentle nature. Stephen Strauss, 88, was the oldest victim, a retired financial advisor with an unstoppable spirit. He loved the symphony, bird-watching, and long walks. His family said he lived with energy and grace. Nicholas Toledo Zaragoza, 78, had traveled from Mexico to visit family. Despite using a walker, he insisted on attending the parade. He was hit while standing in front of his loved ones, protecting them. His granddaughter said, "He saved all of our lives." And then there was Eduardo Uvaldo, 69, who had just celebrated his 50th wedding anniversary. He was shot during the parade and later died in the hospital. His family described him as the soul of every celebration, full of laughter and love. Each victim left behind family, friends, dreams, and a city that will never be the same. And through this video, we want to do more than just tell a story. We want this to be a tribute, a way to honor the victims, to say their names, and to remind the world that they mattered. They were loved, they were cherished, and they should never be forgotten. But now I want to hear from you. Do you think this tragedy could have been stopped? I mean, this wasn't just some stranger. The police knew who he was. He had already shown signs, even attempted to harm himself before, so why wasn't more done? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you've made it this far, be sure to check out this next video. I think you'll enjoy it. Thank you once again for watching.